Hello, buddy. Welcome back. I'm the Stretch Professor, and today we're going to be looking at a Jax Jungle Guide for Season 9. So special thanks to Jason for sponsoring this campaign. If you'd like to sponsor a campaign yourself, just email me at thestratchprofessor@gmail.com. Happy to set that up for you. Just let me know what you have in mind. It's about $30. I will create a well-researched video for you. I'll create a Google Doc just like this one for you, and I'll put it up in a playlist on YouTube so you can always access it. Speaking of which, you can access this Google Doc in the description if you're interested. If you just want to skim along or just kind of look at this later and get the gist of it when you're in Champ Select or something, just to kind of see what you should be doing. And that'll always be there for you. And I'll also have timestamps in the description if you cannot or if you don't have time to watch the entire video. Although I hope you will. I'll try to put as much good information as I can in there. And be sure to check out the rest of the content on the channel as well. We do lots of other guides, tier lists, coaching sessions. I stream every night starting around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have an awesome community. I'd love to have you come out there. So just tons and tons of content on the channel. So be sure to like and subscribe. Check it all out. It's free. It's easy. Just takes a couple of clicks. And we've always got something new for you. Okay, so let's go ahead and get in here. So I want to preface this by saying that I am not a jungle main and I am not a Jax main. So Jason is very well aware of this, but I did as much research as I could to try to help you figure out what's hot right now, what's really good with Jax, and I'll talk a little bit about pathing. Although, as always, when you're thinking about jungle and pathing, then it's going to vary wildly, right? So you don't want to follow a prescribed pattern, but I'll talk about a couple of things that you might consider as you're walking through with Jax. But a lot of it's going to depend on how your lanes are doing, your team composition, what the enemy jungler is doing, all that kind of stuff. But I'll give you some tips on near the end of the video on what you might think about when you're pathing through the jungle. Let's go ahead and talk about Jax in general first, and then we'll move on to talking about items, runes, and then we'll talk about that pathing at the end. Okay. So Jax is a very, very high-scaling duelist type of champion, okay? So he can either be played traditionally in the top lane or more recently in the jungle over the last year or so. And he has lots of things going for him that allow him to do that really well. So first of all, he gets a lot of attack speed off of his passive. So he gets up to 88% attack speed. In the mid-game, you'll be getting an extra 50% attack speed or so. So he gets a lot of extra power on that. Attack speed is usually valued at about 25 gold each. So getting 50% attack speed is going to give you like over 2,000 or over like 1,500 gold or so in terms of overall value. Let me calculate that just real quickly. Let's do 50 times 25. Yeah, 1,250. So you get pretty good value out of that. Now the catch here is it takes time to charge up. So you want to have as much attack speed as you can so that you charge this really quickly. For every 2.5 seconds every time it lands a basic attack. So you have to land 8 attacks to get the full value out of that. So you want to get as many attacks in as possible, and then once he's fully charged up, then he does a ton of sustained damage. In the laning phase, you can charge it up on minions and then go for an all-in on the enemy. So he's starting to become more popular in the top lane, but this can be very good for jungle clears if you have pathing to where you are moving on to the next camp within 2.5 seconds. Of completing one of the camps. So we'll talk about some techniques for doing that a little bit later. But lots of extra attack speed, that's nice. Okay, then he has Leap Strike, which allows him to jump to a unit or a ward. Okay, so a really popular thing with Jax is you always want to try to make sure you have a ward in your inventory, whether it's it's like a trinket ward or even a control ward, just so you can always get out of situations and jump to, like jump over walls or just jump to get closer to somebody if you're not going to be able to get within full Leap Strike range. So it's just a really handy ability to have. You can also jump to allies to get away. And then the most common one, obviously, is jump onto enemies. And if you jump onto an enemy, you do pretty good damage. It has 100% bonus attack damage, 60% AP, and then, a set amount here. And then that's going to set you up, obviously, to land an auto attack as well as soon as you land. So pretty good. And as you level this up, it does scale down, and it's a really low mana cost. Pretty good range, too. So overall, just really solid ability, really hits like a truck once you start getting some items later on. Okay, then you have Empower, once again, very cheap mana cost, and I'm pointing this out that all of his stuff is relatively cheap because that means you don't have to get a mana item, which is really, really good. In the jungle, just your normal jungle item will give you plenty of mana, so that means in the mid game, if you want to, you can hand off that blue buff comfortably to your mid laner if they're doing well, and you don't have to rely on getting any other kind of mana items to help get you through. So that's really handy. Gives you a lot of staying power in the jungle, especially if you're taking things like Baron and Dragon, which some champions, it can really tax their mana. It's not going to be the case for Jax. So empowered, his next leap strike within 10 seconds deals bonus damage, or his next basic attack deals bonus damage. And if it is a basic attack, then you have 50 extra range. That's nice. He's usually just 125 standard melee range. This will give you just a little bit more reach on people. Now, one thing, and this is what defines really good Jax play from just sort of subpar Jax play, is how well do you reset this auto attack timer. This is absolutely crucial for so much of Jax's kit. You have to understand how this works. So basically what this means is when you normal attack, then you have a certain amount of time before you can attack again based on your attack speed and your base attack modifier, right? So an auto attack reset means that you automatically attack again. So you basically get 2 attacks almost instantaneously. You attack, you wait on your animation to finish, and then you press this, you empower, and you'll attack again. Okay? So it's really, really important that you do that. So I would highly recommend, unless you're just trying to one-shot somebody, like they're really low and you want to make sure you kill them, like right off your leap strike, that you do not empower your leap strike with this, and you wait until you are on top of the person, you use it as an auto attack reset. That's a lot of extra damage. So this adds this much normal damage to an empowered attack, right? If you use this with your leap strike or on your first auto attack without using a reset, yeah, it'll add some extra damage on there. But if you use the reset, then you get his base damage all over again. Okay? So, you know, you might have 100 base attack damage, maybe 120, depending on the items that you're getting. And this will allow you to do more. So instead of just doing 180 damage, now you're doing 180 plus an additional 130 if you use that reset. So it almost literally doubles the damage on this. And it's even more than that because it stacks your passive faster, because that counts as an extra attack. So that means you're going to be getting even faster attack speed. And it interacts with your Grandmaster's Might, because every third attack is going to give you extra damage. We'll talk about here in a second. So if you leap strike in, auto attack, and then reset for another auto attack, then you just have to get one more auto in there, and you're going to get this bonus damage. So it's extremely important that you use this. And if you're top lane Jax, you know, a lot of times people will get Titanic Hydra, which also serves as an auto attack reset. So that allows you to get these attacks super quickly. So then you could leap strike in, auto attack, empower to reset it, auto attack again, and then use your Titanic Hydra to attack reset again to get even more damage in there. So you always want to make sure that you're leveraging attack timer resets if a champion has that in his kit. And Jax, it's super important because 2 of his abilities depend on how often you attack. So you definitely want to make sure that you're getting that right. Otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. This is what you're going to max first. You max your leap strike second. And it gets to a very low cooldown, especially when you have a lot of CDR, which you're going to get with the build that I'm going to recommend. You're going to have 40% CDR, so that's really handy. And then once again, this just sets up everything that he has, so you want to make sure you're using that properly. And this damage definitely adds up over time. Then Counter-Strike, this is what really makes him very difficult to kill in a lot of situations, makes him seem ridiculously tanky a lot of the times. And what it is you spin around, and you block all incoming auto attack damage. This is great against auto attack champions. So great against AD carries, great against things like Kindred, other things that have certain auto attacks. Yi is very strong and very powerful right now, and Jax is extremely good into Yi because he's able to counter-strike that. Good into a lot of top lane champions. Some people can work through this, but this can block like Nasus Qs. Because Nasus, that's an empowered auto attack. It can block a lot of Kled stuff. Just blocks a ton of champions and shuts them out right now in the jungle. Very good against like Xin Zhao. It's just a lot of people out there. It's going to be really, really good. And it even lowers the damage by 25% from all area of effect abilities. So even if you get caught out in like a Kennen ult or an Amumu ult or something like that, it'll still reduce a lot of the damage. So extremely powerful ability. You do want to max it last, though, just because it does have a long cooldown, and these are just so strong. They just work so well together. It allows you to stick to the enemy and just put out a ton of DPS. You kind of have to max these first, but this is very, very good, especially if you go Spear of Sojin, which we'll talk about later. This is going to be up almost all the time. It's ridiculous with that item. So it gives you evasion, you dodge all that stuff, and then you do quite a bit of damage. I mean, maximum physical damage is 100% of your bonus AD, and it is increased by 20% for each attack dodge. So if you dodge 5 attacks, you get this 100% extra damage. So it deals up to 310 damage with 100% bonus AD. and stuns enemy for 1 second. And that's AoE. So that's really good not only for obviously stunning people and evading stuff in combat, but also for your jungle clear. I mean, this like blocks all of the damage from like raptors from coming on you. It blocks all the damage from wolves or golems or whatever. So it's really, really nice when you're dealing with those multi-target camps. It does a ton of damage to all of them and blocks all of their damage. Now, you can still auto-attack while this is going on. All it does, like, it looks like he shouldn't be able to auto-attack, so he's, like, spinning his, twirling his staff around. But you actually can still auto-attack. Your auto-attack is not disabled while this is going off. So you can just charge it for the full 2 seconds if you want and just auto-attack people down. So don't feel like you have to use this early just to get the stun. You can keep it up for that extra second if you want to, in order to just give you more protection while you're auto-attacking. Okay. I believe I'm just double-checking that. But yeah, I mean, I'm like 99% sure he can still auto-attack while that's going on. And then Grandmaster's Might, he deals extra magic damage on every third attack. So every third attack, you're going to be doing... you know, this amount here. Now, this is important to note that this is every third basic attack, okay? This empowers your basic attack. So this does not interact with Gensu's, okay? Gensu's just makes your on-hit effects trigger twice. So anything that says on-hit on it will trigger twice on every shot, every second shot of Gensu's, okay? None of his abilities trigger that. This is basic attack empowerment. That's not an on-hit effect, so you don't trigger this twice if you use this with Gensu's. And this does not trigger twice. It's bonus on every third attack. It's not on-hit. Okay, so I'm like 99% sure. Third basic attack within such and such. Yeah, because it's not stacking anything on the enemy. Like the difference between this, because you could target different enemies with this, in theory. Like you could attack... minions twice, and lane Jaxes will do this. You can attack, minions twice, and then go hit the enemy with and start off with a Grandmaster's Might. So you just auto attack enemies twice, and then go in for your leap strike and trade with Grandmasters, and you'll get that first hit right away. Will do that bonus damage. So the difference here is like Kaisa is stacks on hit on an enemy, Vayne stacks on hit on an enemy, Kog'Maw, Varus. All of these have on-hit effects. This is not on-hit. It empowers your third attack. Okay, so this does not have an interaction with Gensu's at all. Okay, I think that's an item that a lot of people get that they think it's going to be really awesome with Grandmaster's Might. It doesn't work that way. At least, once again, I am like 99% certain it does not work that way. Because the wording is very different because it's on attack. And it also does not apply double empower. So there's no interaction with Gensu's whatsoever, unless you take another on-hit item like a Wit's End or a Blatherin King or whatever. But I'll see more Jaxes than I should rush something like a Gensu's Rageblade, either top or in the jungle, because they think it's going to do that, and because they don't understand how it works. Because Gensu's is not, you don't get an extra attack on every second hit. I think that's how people think Gensu's works. It's you trigger on-hit effects twice on every second hit. It's not an extra attack. It doesn't trigger on-attack stuff. It only triggers on-hit stuff. So anyways, yeah, pretty strong. And then he gets a bunch of bonus armor and magic resist as well. So he starts off with a pretty good chunk. I mean, level 11, you're getting extra 50 armor and 50 magic resist. You know, that's like between 2,500 and 3,000 gold worth of defensive stats for free. Whenever you turn this on, it lasts for 8 seconds. And it scales with bonus AD. So if you get 100 bonus AD, which is really easy to do in this kit, you'll get an extra 50s. That's 100 armor. It's like 2,000 gold off of just sheer armor, plus another, 1,500 to 1,800 off of magic resist. So that's pretty nutty. And that makes him feel really unfair in the late game because it's like, man, I just cannot kill this guy. He's got Counter Strike, which blocks all of my attacks, reduces my damage. He has just a ton of extra armor and bonus magic resist that feels like it's always up, that lasts for 8 seconds in a fight. It's on a really low cooldown. He gets extra damage off of this. He gets extra damage off of his Empower. He gets extra attack speed off his Relentless Assault. He's really fast. Like, he has 350 base move speed. Just by comparison, this is like he comes into the game with a free brown boot over someone like a Vayne that has like a basic, 325 move speed. So he pretty much starts off with a free boot. He has really high base stats. He has almost 600 health, 393 health, really high base regen at 8.5. Really high basic attack damage at 68. His attack speed is like okay, and like pretty good armor too. So his base stats are huge, and they scale pretty well as the game goes on. So he just scales super well with items. So that's pretty much Jax. He's just a fighter. He sticks to people. He has lots of ways to jump in their face. He has tons of ways to empower his attacks to do a lot of extra damage. Now, this is really, really good with Trinity Force as well, which we'll talk about here in a second, because you can trigger this so often. And a lot of his abilities, especially when you get the 40% CDR, he's just constantly going to be leap striking, empowering, and that's just going to charge up his passive, going to charge up his Grandmaster's Might, is going to allow him to trigger Trinity Force a ton. So Trinity Force is really, really strong on him. Okay, that's pretty much Jax. So his strengths, he has amazing scaling. He's really good at dueling, particularly versus auto attack champions. So especially like your Master Yis, your Zen Zhaos, anything else that just 80 carries, anything else that's going to auto attack a lot. He's going to be very, very strong against that. He's really good at clearing the jungle too. He stays relatively healthy, which is kind of surprising. I watched a couple of videos on early clears with Jax, and because of that counter-strike, he stays really healthy. Even against things like Raptors, he's pretty good. He has pretty high base mana or base health regen, which we talked about before, and he has excellent single target damage with his Grandmaster's Might. So you can take down things, like Gromp pretty quickly, Blue pretty quickly. So he doesn't have like the healthiest clear in the game or the fastest clear in the game, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good, especially if you can keep that passive stacked for a long time. So he has a great split push option. So this is not something you always want to do as a jungler, but it is on the table. If your team's really far behind, sometimes you can just split push and force a lot of pressure on you, and then that'll open up the map to make some macro plays. So for example, look at the tactics here. If your team's just super far behind, now as a jungler, sometimes you need to stay near Baron, but like you could just push up, split push over here, just tell one of your other teammates to split push over here, and if they send one or two people to do this, you can just keep plowing through these towers, or you could even rotate over to Baron and do it really quickly. And you can match their split pusher if you want to. Now, it's tricky. You're going to have to tell your team about this, especially if you don't have teleport. It's really dangerous to kind of go down here and try to split push when Baron's up. If Baron's down, you can try that. But, that could potentially, if your team has really good stall, if they have really good wave clear, then maybe you could try to do that, like come down here and just tell them to like try to clear a middle. But if the enemy, and that's a lot more viable if the enemy has Ignite or something like that instead of Teleport, then you might be able to do that. Yeah, I mean, if they just get like a really fed Tryndamere or something, maybe they have a 5-0 Tryndamere and you're a 5-0 Jax, no one on your team can match him, you can step up and handle that, possibly, if you play that correctly. I think Jax can win that matchup. So, or any other like really fed scaler, he's going to be able to keep up with a lot of champions. So that is an option, if you're playing something like Jarvan or Hecarim, you're not beating that Tryndamere one-on-one. You're not beating that Fiora or that, Camille or whatever 1v1 most likely, if they're more fed than you. But Jax is the type of champion that can do that. So that is an option that he does have, is he can split push in the right situation. Just make sure that you're checking teleports and, doing good, intelligent macro things. But that is on the table for Jax. And there aren't a ton of other junglers that are popular right now that can keep up and do that. Master Yi can do that. But like Hecarim, Jarvan, Nunu, like they're not going to be able to do that much. Rammus, they're going to have a harder time with that. So he does offer a split push option. He's great for taking objectives. I mean, he has awesome single target damage like we talked about before, knocking out Barons, knocking out Dragons really quickly, especially later on in the game. He's just going to shred through them super, super fast. He takes towers super quickly. I know everyone's heard that scary noise of him beating on towers. So he's really good at taking objectives, and he has really good mobility. I mean, he can jump to wards, he can jump to allies, enemies, and his jump is on a pretty low cooldown, right? Especially when you get 20% CDR, later on in the game, that's going to be like 8 seconds base. You get 40% off. It's going to take it down to about 5 seconds. You have a jump for 700. So it's really, really good mobility. And if you have Spear of Sojin, you're going to have a jump like every 2 seconds or something when you're landing auto attack. So he's going to be really, really good. in terms of mobility. Now, his weakness is he is kind of squishy early on in the jungle. So your itemization, because you're going to be rushing Blood Razor and because you're going to be rushing Trinity Force, those are both fairly expensive, and you're not going to have a lot of health. You do have your Counter-Strike to help you out. You do have some of the resistances off of your passive to help you out, but you're not going to be able to get other defensive or hybrid type of items. You know, champions like Jarvan and champions like Rek'Sai, they can get Black Cleaver really early on. So, you know, they'll go Warrior, but then they can go Cleaver after that, and it gives them a lot of health, a lot of extra survivability. You don't really want to do that on Jax. And those items are a lot cheaper, too. Cleaver's 3,000 versus Trinity, I believe, is still like 3,600. So that means that he's going to be pretty squishy unless he gets really fed early on. So you do a ton of damage with that build, but you're going to be squishy. So do not run in and try to frontline in team fights. Do not try to jump in 1v5 unless you have like a Lulu or something else that's going to help you out. So he does not have the best team fighting gauge. Although you can still duel really well just because Counter-Strike is so good in duels. And you're going to do a ton of single target damage. So you're really good at dueling people early on, but you're not the best 5v5 fighter early on until you start getting really fed. So you're going to need to start getting pieces of some kind of defensive item. And really, even going Spear of Sojin later on is you're still gonna be really squishy. So there might be some situations where you want to go for a GA or a Steric earlier on, but just keep that in mind. Like, you are pretty good in small fights, but in large team fights, you can definitely get blown up. You have pretty limited gank options. You know, basically it's just you leap strike and try to stun them with your Counter Strike. And like, that's good, but they can flash out of that or dash out of that or knock you away. So you don't really have something like Jarvan, right, where you can just like engage on someone if your flash is up from like 2,000 units away, right? Like flash, flag and dragon, then dunk them with your ult, right? You don't have that. You have to get within 700 range, and you don't have anything to speed you up. You know, you're not going to be going like, I guess you can go mobility boots maybe in some circumstances, but you're so squishy. I think you have to go Mercury or Ninja Tabby early on. So you just have really limited gank options. You can't really go through walls like Kayn and that type of stuff. So your ganks are kind of lackluster. If you're able to flank and then get off that leap strike and they don't have flash, yeah, you're probably going to kill him. So it's not like he can't gank. It's just like it's not as strong as some of the other top tier junglers right now. His items are very expensive, like I mentioned before. You know, usually there will be some kind of item in there that's going to be cheaper that a lot of champions will get, but not Jax. Everything's going to be expensive on Jax. So, you know, I mentioned the Cleaver example. Instead of Cleaver, you have to get Trinity Force, which is a lot more expensive. And then even like Spear of Sojin, I think is pretty expensive too. I think it's like at least 3,200 gold. So, you know, some champions, I think like Rek'Sai and Jarvan after Cleaver will typically go like Guardian Angel, which I think is like 2,600 gold. I could just look at some of these actual numbers here. It's like 2,600 gold versus, you know, Sojin's going to be 3,200. So on average, you're paying about 500 or 600 more gold than a lot of other champions do for their main items. And you don't want to do Tiamat anymore. I guess we're kind of starting to talk about items now. Tiamat had been a thing on Jax for a while, but they did increase the cost quite a bit. It does help you out with your clear, and Titanic Hydra is really good because you can get that auto attack reset. But I think most people are deciding that Spear of Sojin is just so ridiculously OP on him. It's actually 3,400. Spear of Sojin is just so ridiculously OP on him that you have to get this after Trinity. Because like basically what this item does is you ultimate, right, which is on an 80-second cooldown, so it's a really short ult. And then every time you get 50% bonus attack speed, first of all, which that in and of itself is going to be amazing on Jax. But then every time you land a basic attack, it refunds 20% of your remaining cooldowns on attack. So not on hit, but on attack. So remember, you do have auto attack resets with your W. So this is happening a lot. So basically this means you get 40% CDR with Spear of Sojin plus Trinity. And then this is going to knock like a second off of your remaining attacks. So your leap strike is going to be up, you know, like almost literally every second or two. When this is going on and you're landing all these auto attacks, you're just permanently sticking to people. They're never getting away from you. You're just pretty much always going to have up your Counter Strike. I mean, the Counter Strike itself stays up for 2 seconds. So just imagine this as the meme goes, right? It's 8, you have, kind of late game, let's see, 12 seconds on your Counter-Strike. You get 40% CDR off of that. So it's 0.6 times 12, 7.2. Okay, so that's the base cooldown on this. Now remember, it's going to stay up for 2 seconds, right? So you activate your ult, you jump in with Leap Strike, you auto attack, and then empowered auto attack immediately right after that. That's an additional 40% off of the remaining time. So it stacks it's the remaining cooldown, not base cooldown. So we would do times 0.8 times 0.8 every time. So now it's a 4.6 second cooldown just off of that. And it's going to last for 2 seconds, right? Whenever you go in. So now, now it's a 2.6 second cooldown. Then every time you auto attack it from there, so let's say you land one more auto attack times 0.8. Now it's 3.6 seconds. So you'll probably land at least 3 of these by the time that Counter-Strike finishes. And so it's going to be a 1.6 second cooldown on a 12-second Counter-Strike. So that's almost literally, this is going to be permanently up in team fights when that Spear of Sojourn's active for 8 seconds. So your Leap Strike's going to be on like a 2-second cooldown. Your Counter-Strike's going to be on a 1.6 second cooldown. Your Empower is pretty much always going to be up. It's just goofy. Like, it's so much mobility and so much mitigation. I mean, no one's ever going to damage you with an auto attack. So that's what makes that item just so ridiculous on him. And then Trinity Force, of course, is the other one that's expensive. It's 37.33. But then you can reset the spell blade, so you're getting a lot of extra burst damage off of that. And then that gives you extra movement speed to stick to people as well. Off of the rage. And then he uses all of these stats super well. Now, they took the AP off of it a long time ago, but they gave it more attack speed instead. So you love all of these stats. I mean, every single one of these are going to be really, really good stats on you. So, the fact that he has to go Blood Razor and Trinity and Sojin means it does take him a while to power up, because all of his stuff is going to be like 500 more gold than something like Jarvan or Rek'Sai. Or Hecarim gets Trinity also, but he starts getting defensive items after that. But if you do get to the late game, if you do get rich, if you do get a lot of kills, then you're going to snowball super, super hard because all of your items are going to be super slot efficient. You're just squeezing every maximum value out of each slot. So that is really nice. But the other thing is, before you get Spear of Sojin completed, he is pretty easily disrupted. If he gets knocked out of his jump by like a Janna Tornado, or he gets polymorphed by Lulu, or knocked back by a Vayne Condemn or whatever, he can be stopped to an extent. If your Leap Strike's on cooldown, you don't have as much, capability to stick to people. So once he gets Sojin, though, it becomes exponentially more difficult to contain him. But if he stays on people, if you do not peel him, he will destroy your whole team. He is a 1v9 type of champion for sure. Once he gets those items. I mean, he's going to be literally like jump, auto attack, Q, dead. So that's on like an 80 carry in the late game, and it's disgusting. I'm sure everyone's seen it when he gets to that point, but that's kind of how he works. That's how he gets to that point. Okay. I forgot to change this, the name on this here. So we just want to go, Precision Domination. Now, there are a few different runes you can get out there. Pretty much everyone's doing Conquer these days. You do stack it really quickly because you get extra auto attack resets. So, if you Leap Strike in there, then auto attack, and then Q to auto attack again. I'm not sure if that triggers twice. I haven't tried that on Jax. My thought is that it would only give you 1 stack on this, but it is doing bonus damage off of an ability, and it is doing 1 extra auto attack. So it's possible this gives you 2 stacks. I'm not sure. But either way, he does stack it up really, really quickly because he auto attacks so quickly and has these empowered autos. So he stacks that up quickly. That's going to translate a lot of his damage to true damage, which is really good. Then it also gives him healing on everything that he does. So all of that extra 10% damage that he does basically gives him 10% healing, which is really, really nice. And then Triumph is really great when you do get those kills, you get those resets. That's handy. Alacrity, attack speed's always good. And then coup de grace, just making sure that you execute people. I would not get cut down. Some people have talked about, maybe trying some of these other things. you just want to be able to execute people. You're already going to destroy the high HP targets. You just want to make sure people die. And then I think that domination is probably where to go. We have seen some different options over time, but this is going to be the best thing out there right now. And sudden impact is a classic for him. Sudden impact is classic because he uses both the magic pin and the armor pin, so not many champions do that. But you get 7 lethality and 6 armor pins, so that's really good. And you're going to be able to keep this up pretty much always because you're constantly jumping. Let's see, affecting... Yeah, using a dash. So his jump counts as a dash. I was like, wait, it doesn't have to be invisible, does it? No. So you're pretty much always going to have this up. And it's very handy because, you know, you have a really good hybrid damage of magic damage on your W and physical damage on a lot of your other stuff, magic damage on your R. That brings me to something else about Jax I forgot to mention earlier. He's very, very good against tanks because it's so difficult to itemize against him. Because he does a lot of magic damage and he does a lot of physical damage. So if you buy armor, he's still going to kill you with magic damage. You buy magic resist, he's still going to kill you with his physical damage. So he's really, really tough to deal with from a tank perspective. Just any kind of perspective. If he gets his items, he's very difficult to deal with. So you obviously wouldn't want to buy anything like Mortal Reminder or Void Staff or whatever on him. I don't think most people do that anyways, but you don't want to do that because your damage is hybrid. So it makes it difficult to itemize against him, but you don't want normal penetration stuff just because, like, you wouldn't want Sork boots or something on him just because your damage is split, you know, relatively, like, maybe 50-50. But that does make things like sudden impact that give both. And it's important this is not adaptive. It's not lethality or magic pen. It's both. So that's what makes this rune traditionally extremely powerful on him because you get both benefits. And then the other one that I recommend as of late, there are plenty of other options. I have talked about, I made a whole video about Ghost Poro. You could try this out. It is a little cheeky. Like basically how you would do this early on is you would put the Ghost Poro down in the bot lane. So you put your ward, I'll ping it out here. If you run immediately at the start of the game, let's say you're red side, you put this ward right here, your 1 minute ward, and then whenever it times out, then you'll automatically get 6 stacks, which will give you either 6 ability power or whatever the equivalent is in attack damage, like 4 extra attack damage early. So it basically means you get to start the game with a free like 120 gold worth of offense. So could be pretty good on Jax. It is going to take him a lot longer to stack this up than it will a traditional support though. But you can use that to help you track the enemy jungler to an extent, and it also gives you some extra buffs over time. So you can put this like... It depends on what the enemy jungler is doing, but you could like obviously put it in something like the Pixel Bush, which is a great place to watch. You can put it in one of these bushes. You want to put it somewhere where they're not going to clear it though. You could even, if you really want to be cheeky, you could put it directly on their camp. So that way, whenever it spawns, if they want their camp, they're going to have to walk through it, which is going to give you an extra stack. So if you put your 1 minute ward like right here on their raptors, and it spawns into the Ghost Poro, then it's going to see them whenever they try to go for raptors. You could also put it here. But yeah, and that does allow you to stack up. Once you complete it, it does give you 650 gold value. You do already have a lot of offense, though, so I think it's not going to be as good on Jax, but I just want to throw it out there because I've talked about it on supports a lot, so I don't really recommend it, but it is something interesting. The main reason you would do this is if you really, really want that extra 4 AD early on. That could help out with your jungle clear quite a bit, and it's very easy to get 6 stacks right off the bat if you do that, that thing that I mentioned where you put it bot lane. So it's up to you. I think the most popular one's probably going to be Relentless Hunter. They did buff this recently as well. 10 out-of-combat movement speed right away at the very beginning is huge. That's going to help you rotate around the map a lot faster, clear your camps faster. And then it stacks up even more as well. So you can get up to 55 out-of-combat movement speed, which is great, especially because he has to run at people to counter-strike for ganks. So anything like that that he can do is going to help out a ton. You could take Ravenous. That could give you some extra healing. But I still think you probably just go Relentless. So Sudden Impact is a no-brainer. You definitely want to do that. And then Relentless is going to be super, super good as well. So that's how I would run that. As far as runes go, I don't think there's a lot of flexibility there. Some people go PTA. That does give you higher burst damage. So if you think you're going to be fighting the enemy jungler and it's going to be all about bursting them out as fast as possible, you do trigger PTA really quickly, press the attack. off your auto attack reset, so that could be pretty handy. But I still think that Conqueror is going to be a little bit better just because of it heals you up a lot. It does true damage and healing. So it's up to you. But almost everybody's going Conqueror these days. Let me see. Pro builds. Now, this is a lot of top lane Jax as well, but like literally everybody is getting Conqueror. Even the jungle Jaxes, it's worth noting. So that's like dramatic consensus. Now, there is sort of a... people sort of disagree about the secondary. So some people are taking probably Boots Biscuits, I would imagine. Oh, Time Warp Tonic. Yeah, because they're starting Corrupting Potion, that makes Time Warp Tonic a little bit better with Biscuits. But you are seeing some people in the jungle. There aren't, once again, a lot of the top end people are not jungling him as much. But you do eventually see some people go for things like the Domination, like Luch here. So I still think Domination is going to be great in the jungle, but it's up to you. I wouldn't recommend Inspiration, just because that's mostly for laning. But I guess you could go something like Resolve if you wanted to take Demolish. If you're like dueling with someone and you want to get up there and take down their tower as fast as possible after a gank, I could see that perhaps. You could get the health stacking one plus Demolish. I forgot what that thing's called, like the thing at the very bottom of the tree. Or you could get the Tenacity one. So there's a couple of good options in there. You could even go Bone Plating if you wanted to, but I think those are mostly like for laning, like the Bone Plating and the Demolish type of stuff, but there are definitely some options in there. Okay, and then items. Pretty much everybody goes Blood Razor. In the past, there have been some Jaxes that have gone Cinderhulk. That does help you out with your clear. It's just a little bit slower, and it's a lot worse against objectives. So Blood Razor is really, really good at taking things like Baron, buffs, Dragon, Scuttle, tanks. It's just going to put you in a lot better place. So there are some instances where maybe Cinderhulk helps, but you're not going to be getting a lot of health items. Your Trinity is going to give you some health. Your Spear of Sojin is going to give you some health. You do have pretty high base health, so it's possible. Health is really good on him overall as a stat just because he gets all those extra resistances for free. So it's definitely worth considering. It is a cheaper item, I think, than Blood Razor as well. So Blood Razor is one of the more expensive ones, $26.25. I think it's cheaper. Yeah, it's a little bit cheaper. It's $2,500. They lowered the cost on it, but it's a lot less gold efficient. Like, this one's just so much better for offense. Like, it just allows you to completely obliterate people. Now, this is one thing. If someone does take Gensu's and Blood Razor, the Blood Razor does give you an on-hit effect on hit. So it would double trigger Blood Razor, but it's not worth it. You don't want to do Gensu's most of the time, trust me. So, yeah, it starts off really inefficient at the start. But then once you start doing this damage, if it's somebody that has like 1,500 health or something, I think it becomes cost efficient. Versus Cinderhulk, I think, is really inefficient. Yeah, Cinderhulk's terrible. In terms of efficiency, it's only 36% gold efficient. So you really need a lot of extra health. Every 100 bonus health is going to be an extra 40 gold value. And you're trying to get to 2,500 gold, and you're starting with 920. So you're going to want to get to, I guess if you consider this being like, it basically has a Bombies built into it. It does more damage than normal Bombies, I think. Yeah, it does double damage of Bombies. It's tough to calculate. But I think if you're not getting a lot of extra health items, like if you're not going Warmogs, basically, then this is going to be a lot weaker if you have other options. So a lot of tanks will get the, like Zac, Rammus, stuff like that, but that's because they don't really use the other ones well. They just don't use Warrior well. They don't use Blood Razor well, and so they just kind of have to get Cinderhulk. So it would help you with your clear, but you're already going to clear pretty fast, and Blood Razor is going to help you a lot with your clear too, especially your Baron clear, and that's what's going to matter later on. So I think you pretty much always have to go Blood Razor, even though historically Jax would occasionally go Cinderhulk. I think this day and age, Blood Razor is what you got to do, especially with Spear of Sojin. You want to be getting off as many auto attacks as possible because that just makes the whole rest of your kit work so well. Okay, and then Trinity, no-brainer. You have to go Trinity first. The item's just so good on Jax. It adds to your burst damage, gives you the movement speed that you want, gives you a little bit of extra health, attack speed, attack damage, just everything. He loves everything in that kit. And I'm pretty sure it's a fairly efficient item, too. It's a pretty efficient item for how expensive it is, and it's very slot efficient. So you're getting like basically 3 items all stacked into one slot. So it's almost like you have 9 slots or 8 slots rather than 6, because it does take up a slot. Because you're basically getting you're getting Stinger, Sheen, and Phage all rolled into one. So it's like 3 half items for most items out there. So it's like you're getting 1.5 items, 1.5 full items whenever you complete this. So yeah, it's pretty much starting off at 3,800, not including the Sheen proc, which depending on how you want to value that, and it's a double Sheen proc effectively. So the Sheen itself is valuing that proc at about 400, it looks like. 400 and some change, maybe 450-ish. So the fact that you're getting a double Sheen proc off, effectively it's doing 200% of your bonus AD, means that's, I don't know, roughly a 900 gold value. So you're buying this item for 3,700 gold, and you're getting somewhere close to 4,700 gold value off of it. Once again, some of this stuff's kind of hard to, calculate, some of these passives, but it's very, very good, and it's a very efficient item, and he uses everything. Most champs, there will be something wasted in here, but he wants all of it. So that's really handy. Then after that, you get a bit more flexibility. You can kind of see the popularity of different item builds here on Lolalytics. The Sojin does have the highest win rates, everything that involves Spear of Sojin. Now, as to whether you get the Red Smite or Blue Smite does allow you to stick to people a little bit better. So if you're facing like really mobile stuff and you're already going to destroy it, that's good. If you think it's going to be kind of a tough fight and you just want as much like dueling power as possible, I think Blood Razor is going to be stronger. But yeah, most of the good builds are 3rd item Blood Razor. You might see Asterix. Occasionally you see the Gensus. It does have the highest win rate. It is cheaper. Almost nobody gets this item, though. It's like 1% pick rate for the exact item count there. And as a 3rd item, as you can see, or like 2nd item, almost nobody gets it. 3rd item, it's a little more interesting as 3rd. But and another thing about this item is it just doesn't give like a lot of utility. You have to stack it up, but it doesn't give CDR. It doesn't give health. It's just kind of raw damage, which is nice. But Sojin at least gives you some CDR, gives you some health. And I just think, honestly, just from playing against this, like that Awakened Dragon, just constantly being able to leap strike and keep up your counter strike almost permanently for 8 seconds. It's just OP as hell. That's what I think. So it just gives so much extra utility. You're already blowing people up, no matter what you get. After you get Trinity Force Blood Razor, you're already massacring people. So that's what I would recommend, is Spear of Sojin 2nd, just because it's so good with your Q and your E, like we've talked about several times. Sterix is another good option. Now, the thing about Sterix, they did nerf it a while ago to where it does not interact. It does not make your Trinity Force stronger, your Trinity Force procs, which kind of sucks. But the bonus attack damage is really good because you do have good bonus attack damage ratio. So Leap Strike has a 100% ratio. And then, your Grandmaster's Might, that gives you a lot of extra armor off of that. This has a 100% ratio on your Counter Strike. You're almost always going to get full value out of that. People keep auto-attacking you even when you're spinning. A lot of times, especially at like gold and lower. So I think Sterix is really good. It does give you a nice shield. It gives you some extra HP, and it does give you the extra bonus damage. And because you already have 2 other things that are giving you more health, your Trinity and your Spear of Sojin, then it's going to scale even better. Another option that you could do as your 4th completed item would be like a GA. You could even get GA after Trinity if you want to. That's going to be kind of the safer build. It's going to do a lot less damage. But if they have a lot of squishies and they don't have a lot of peel, if you're just one-shotting everyone anyways and you're really far ahead, maybe just go GA to protect your bounty. It's a lot cheaper also than Spear of Sojin, so you can get it online a lot faster. This is a really common build on things like Rek'Sai and Jarvan. So you can do that on Jax as well. That will help protect you. Another option in there, if they have a lot of AP, you can do Wit's End. Wit's End does give you a lot of extra attack speed. It does not give you the CDR. It does not give you the really awesome, like, permanent Leap Strike and Counter Strike. But it does give you really good protection against AP champs. So if they have, like, 3 AP champs on their team, if they're rocking, like, like a Zyra bot lane, Rumble top, and I don't know, Cassiopeia mid lane or something like that, then Wit's End can be a pretty good option. Now, remember that they did buff Wit's End fairly recently. to where it gives a permanent more attack speed, gives you 50% attack speed, and instead of stealing spell penetration, which wasn't that great on Jax, it was okay. They changed it around to where it does a hell of a lot more on-hit damage. So if you do want to go Ginsu's on Jax, then maybe you could go Wit's End. Wit's End is cheaper, and Ginsu's is cheaper as well than Spear of Sojin. So maybe this would give you a faster 4th item power or 5th item power spike. Yeah, you have to have Boots, Trinity, and then I guess you could go like Ginsu's and then Wits after that. So I guess that would be a 4th item power spike. You know, maybe in certain matchups, particularly against AP, that could be a pretty good thing. Let me just pull it up here real quick for you. So it gives you extra movement speed, which is nice. Gives you a lot of extra on-hit damage. And it heals you. So while heal for 33% of the post-mitigation damage dealt by this on-hit. So you do have an attack reset, which will trigger this on-hit damage. But I probably wouldn't go this unless you're going Ginsu's to go with it. Now, it is very, very powerful with Ginsu's. So it's very situational. It does give you the magic resist, which is handy. So if they have a lot of, like I said, ability power, then maybe consider that. But it's still going to be really niche. Gunblade, don't do this on Jax. It does sound really cool in theory. It's like, oh, I get a lot of like burst damage. I get healing on everything. It's really nice, but it's very expensive. Trust me, with that extra gold, you would much, much rather get Trinity Force. It's just going to be a lot better in the long run. And then Titanic Hydra was something in the past that people had gotten a lot for that auto attack reset, like I mentioned earlier. It does give you a lot of HP. This was a pretty good build, and this is why a lot of people were getting, it comboed well with the Cinder Hulk that they had earlier. So you would go something like Rush Tiamat, then Cinder Hulk, and then complete Titanic Hydra, and then get like Trinity after that at some point, because Titanic Hydra gives you extra health. You get a bonus off of that with the Cinder Hulk. So that's kind of a really old school build, but I think the jungle has changed so much and the items have changed around so much, and Spear of Sojin is now available and super strong on him. It's the optimal 3rd item a lot of times, or 4th item if you include Boots. I think that's what you want to do most of the time, unless you have an extremely good reason to not do that. Okay, and then as far as boots go, it's up to you. I recommend going a defensive boot like Mercury Treads is really good because you are very vulnerable to CC. So Mercury Treads is usually really solid. If they have all AD, though, or if they have a very dangerous AD jungler, then you can do Ninja Tabby. But I wouldn't go mobility boots. You're just not really all about the like hardcore 24/7 gank. You can gank, it's nice, but you can also power farm and take objectives really quickly. So I would just recommend a defensive boot most of the time on him. Now, as far as pathing, and then we'll finish this up, I would like to try to keep these guides under an hour, but I want to give you as much information as I possibly can. The main thing, if you can do this in the jungle, is to try to keep your passive up. Okay? So as soon as you stack this, you need to try to move to the next camp as fast as you possibly can to try to keep as many of these stacks as you can, right? And so there are a couple of different ways you can do this. Let me pull this up here. So if you are on blue side, when you're fighting your blue, try to pull it out as far as you can to like here. A lot of people do this anyways, but it's so important on Jax as well. So you want to pull that out to here, get it clear on your blue, and then go for Gromp. Try to pull Gromp out over to here as far as you can before he resets. And then once you finish that, then run over here, ASAP, get on the wolves. And that way you keep that attack speed up, and you're going to be clearing a lot faster. Now, once you finish your wolves, you could try to run here and like ward here and hop over this to keep some stacks. I haven't timed it. I think you might be able to pull your wolves to like right here. And if that's the case, you might be able to save your one ward. If you kill the wolves here, you'd have 1,000, 2, 1,000. You ward this and jump it. Now, you're not going to have your ward for scouting if you do that. But it would allow you to get there and keep your stacks a lot faster, because if you have to run from here all the way over here, then your stacks are definitely falling off. That's going to be like 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. It's going to be like 4 or 5 seconds to get over there. So like here, if you just run in a straight line, ward over this, and then Leap Strike onto the Raptors, I think you'll save a lot of your stacks. So how much faster is that going to make your clear? Is it worth it? I haven't tested this, so I don't know for sure. But I think that that is something that is definitely on the table as Jax. And just a quick note about this. This is patch 9.9 as well. So this is after they've changed the Scuttle. So historically, Jax, just like every other jungle, would try to go blue and then like Scuttle a lot of times. And he could fight at Scuttle. He was okay at it. But now Scuttle doesn't spawn for a while. So once again, I don't know the exact timing. It might be that you want to go like blue. And it's going to depend on what the lanes are doing too. But maybe you want to go blue into Gromp and then, you know, kite your Gromp here, come over and do Wolves. I guess you could also do like Wolves into, or like blue into Wolves. But I think you'd want to go Gromp. Blue, Gromp, Wolves, and then come down here and do Scuttle if you think they're not going to fight you for it. It just depends on if you want to fight them or not. You know, if it's something that's really squishy that you can duel, then I think you hit level 3 after these 3 camps. I'm not 100% about that. Once again, I'm not an expert on this. But it just depends on what you want to do. You know, you can go here and then, you know, like I said, run over here. If you do want to try to keep those stacks, you can jump this wall. It'll allow you to keep the stacks and kill all this stuff a little bit faster. It's not going to take 8 auto attacks to speed it up again. So you won't have your ward to see where the enemy jungler is, but you will have a faster clear. So if you're just trying to AFK clear, just boom, 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 here, boom, and then grab your red, pull it out all the way over to here, kill this, and then come over and kill your golems. So that'd be your full clear. You might lose a stack or two off of golems, 1,000, 2, 1,000. I think you can keep most of them, though. Starting golems. That's just kind of your full clear. And you can do that as Jax because you scale so well with items that you can go full clear. You shouldn't feel pressured like I have to gank immediately right now. Just kind of read the situation, see what's going on, see when the Scuttle's spawning. But, you know, you might want to go blue, Gromp, Wolves, and then come down here in position for Scuttle. Or, like I said, you could come up here, kill Raptors, and then after Raptors, go for this Scuttle. Or, like, if you think you have time, you could go red and then over to the Scuttle. But your main thing when you're doing jungle with any jungler is how can I be as efficient as possible? How can I not waste a single step? And like I said, with Jax's passive, it's so much even more important than usual. So it is boom, 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 boom. And if you see them gank bottom or something like that, you could come in here and try to take their top. If you have saved your ward, if you didn't care about the stacks falling off, if you didn't mind doing this camp for an extra 5 seconds or something to keep your ward, you know, you could try to ward their blue or like ward Scuttle and keep an eye on them. But I think those are going to be your main options. Is you start here. If it's red side, red side's a little bit tougher because either way you cut it, it's just not as smooth early on. So you could just try to start blue top side if you want to do that, and you'd have the same path, the same pathing that I just talked about. If you don't, but you're going to get less of a leash. Your top laner can help you out some. Jax doesn't need a super leash. He's already pretty fast at it. But you could just mirror it and go this way. But if you're starting red side, I would assume you just skip your golems. I mean, sometimes people do golems, but especially because Scuttle's not going to be spawning for a while. Although it's going to take you a while to cut through your golems. So I guess if you want bot lane Scuttle, you could just do red and then clean up all of these golems and then come over here in position for Scuttle. Maybe try a gank and then go for the Scuttle if you want to do it that way. The Scuttle spawns at 3:15 now, so I don't think you're going to have time for that. You're going to have a lot of wasted time. Maybe if you try a gank, you could do that. There's not a lot of videos with Jax Jungle that are guides that are updated for the Scuttle spawn time changes. So, like I said, I don't have perfect research on this, but, you know, a more comfortable route might just be go red, go Raptors, pull them, you know, as far as you can, like right here, try to clear them, you know, run as fast as you can over here. You're probably going to drop your stacks to do that. I guess it's not going to be that much faster. I was going to say you could try to, like, ward hop here to not drop your stacks, but I think you're going to drop your stacks anyway. So you would go here, come over here, and then just the standard, you know, Wolves, Blue, Gromp, Scuttle. Try to scout out where the enemy is and decide if you want to gank or if you want to try to go invade them or just back and get some early boots or something. So I feel like the red start is going to be tougher, but maybe you could do something like, you know, if you want to go for the Scuttle, you could try out like red, pull it to here, Gromp, and then come over here, do Raptors, and then come over here and do Scuttle. So that's just a few options to get you started. Just keep in mind that he's pretty good at killing both single target and AoE stuff. I think he's going to be slightly better at single target, so you really want to prioritize killing things like red. If you can get the golems off the field early, that's great. They do give reduced gold, I think. Maybe experience also early on. I'm not 100% about that, but this is the most valuable camp by far on its second clear. So you want to try to clear it as fast as possible if you can comfortably do it. And then that way it's going to show up faster the next time, and you're going to get even more of a clear. But some of this might depend on where you want to gank, too. I'm just talking in theory about maximizing your experience and your gold in the jungle, but maybe some of this is influenced by where you want to gank. So bot lane, if you have a Leona Draven, maybe, like, hell yeah, you want to gank bottom, right? If they're against, like, a Soraka Jinx, then yeah, maybe you want to go red into... golems into level 2 gank over here. Or, if you know that their jungler is going to start topside, maybe just go red immediately, like level 2 gank here, and then go take their blue or something like that. So you can definitely call an audible there. Similarly, if you have topside, a lot of kill pressure, maybe you have like a Darius or something like that, and you're against, I don't know, like a Maokai or some kind of tank. Maybe you just, power farm your way up to here, and then... just go try to gank top. So you have to understand sort of what's going on in the lanes, where you have the most kill threat, and that'll inform where you're going in the jungle. But like I said, because Scuttle's down, I think everyone's trying to sort of reimagine where they should be going. But I think those are some pretty good options to think about. The biggest thing is try to keep your passive up on as many camps as you can. And then if you can, try to fight for one of those Scuttles if you can when it appears at 3:15. So once again, I don't know the exact timings, but, practice this, try it out, and just notice that whenever it turns yellow, that means it's going to spawn in about 20 seconds. So then start, like, positioning to, get over there. But anyways, that's going to be it for this guide. Let me know what you think in the description. Do you have any other tips for Jungle Jax? I tried to pack in as many as I possibly could. The biggest things to remember, as I just said on the clear, are you want to try to keep that passive up for as long as you possibly can. And try to use the auto attack reset on the W. Not only when you're clearing camps, that's easy, but also in the thick of combat, don't just spam the keyboard. Make sure you're using that W after you land an auto attack. So it's auto, then W, okay? So make sure that you're doing that. Don't just waste an empowered attack without using that auto attack reset, or you're going to drop your DPS in fights by like 30 to 50%. It's astronomical. So make sure that you're doing that. And yeah, just play it smart. Like I said, you have a lot of options, so don't feel pressured into a certain, kind of play style. Like, read the game, figure out what's going to be optimal. You can be a power farmer. You can take objectives really quickly. You can be a pretty decent ganker in the right circumstances. You scale really well for late game, but you can also duel a lot of champs in the early to mid game. So it's very, very flexible. Just be aware that you are going to be squishy in team fights early on because you're not going to be getting a lot of tanky items. If you do need to be that frontline team fighter, then consider going something like GA after Trinity Force. Sojin is the best, I think, but it's also the really greedy and expensive build. So sometimes you just might have to call an audible and go GA because your team has no engage and they all really want a team fight. You're not going to get the option to split because your team keeps getting caught out and dying or something like that. So, you might have to call an audible, adjust your itemization. There are a lot of items that are really good. I mean, any of these are going to be good on him. Let's be honest. Jax is good with pretty much anything. But I do think that Bloodrazor Trinity is a great place to start most games and feel it out. Default to Spear of Sojin. But you could also go for early Steric or GA if you need more protection. Or in certain situations, if you want to go for the Wits End Gensu package, you can do that. Gunblade, almost never. And then Titanic, maybe you could try the old school like Cinderholt Titanic build if you want, but it's a lot less damage than it used to be. But anyways, that's going to be it. So special thanks again to Jason for the generous donation. If you'd like to donate for a guide yourself, just email me at thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com. Happy to help you out with that. It's just $30. It usually takes me about 2 hours to make these, so it's like $15 an hour. So I think that's pretty reasonable. If you include like the research, the filming, the Google Doc, the post-production, the thumbnail, posting it up, all the metadata, all that stuff. It takes a while to do these videos. But Anyways, let me know. Check out the rest of the content as well. There will be a lot of other champion guides in a playlist I'll have linked in the description to this. We also have tier lists for every patch, coaching sessions. I stream every night starting around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have topical guides like best one-trick champions, does luck exist in League of Legends, several videos on tips, how to climb to diamond, and just all kinds of stuff. We have like over 50 guides. So just check it all out. We have a ton of stuff, new stuff coming in all the time. And that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.